So this is the March 25th, 2025 open meeting of the Hopkinton Conservation Commission being conducted remotely consistent with an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. The new law authorizes all members of a public body to continue participating in meetings remotely. The open meeting law's requirement that a quorum of the body and the chair be physically present at the meeting location remains suspended. For this meeting, the Hopkinton Conservation Commission is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's web meeting calendar and the Conservation Commission agenda identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting may also be broadcast by HCAM through one or many of its channels or platforms. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Supporting materials have been provided to members of the commission for this meeting and are available on the town's website. This meeting will feature public comment. After commission members and staff have discussed each project application on the agenda, the chair will open the discussion to public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak are asked to identify their name and address. 3 minutes will be afforded for each public comment. Each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted via roll call of the members. I will now confirm which commission members are present. Ed? Jim? I don't think I saw Jim come in.
I don't think we're expecting Jim to.
Okay. Janine?
Present.
Ted?
Present.
Myself, Melissa Recos, and we are not expecting Heather or Matt tonight either. I will now confirm staff that are present. Judy?
Present.
Anna?
Present.
And Joe?
Present.
All right, thank you. All right, so Judy's got the agenda up here. We don't have any new hearings tonight, but I do want to point out that we have 2 hearings that have been continued. The Ravenwood LLC project and DeWolf 47 Oakhurst Road. Those are both being continued to April 8th. So there will be no discussion on either of those projects tonight. All right. With that being said, we'll start off with some work session items. We don't have any documents for review. We do have the draft minutes for review from June 25th, 2024. So, does anyone on the commission have any questions or comments about those meeting minutes or not have enough time to read them?
Melissa,
Yes.
I missed about an hour of that meeting. I had to leave early, so I had planned to abstain from a vote of approval, and I think that leaves you with only 3 votes.
Okay. Yep,
I don't
I
think
think
Ed was at that meeting either, right?
yeah, possibly not. Okay. We'll kick that one to our next meeting then, if you don't mind, Dana.
That's fine.
Okay. Next up on the work session items, we have Hopkinton DPW 2025 Lake Maspinock treatment plan, and I did see Carrie join. So Carrie, would you like to talk to us about the treatment plan?
Okay, good. I'm on. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right, lovely. Yeah, so Carrie Reed, Director of Public Works, and I'm supposed to have Joe with me.
I am on.
Lovely. You want to introduce yourself, Joe?
Hi, Joe Baldiga, the chair of the Weed Control Committee, Citizen Input Group. Thank you.
Great. And I had a few slides. So if Judy or Anna can pull them up.
Yep, I have them up.
Loveliness.
There we go. Let me know when you want me to move forward.
All right. Yes, we can skip through the next one. We'll go through them as quickly as we can. So, you guys are all familiar with the Lake Maspinock watershed, but that's what we're talking about today. And we can go to the next one because you guys are all familiar. Dun, dun, dun. And a little bit of background, which we've covered before. But essentially, you know, we've been studying the lake for quite a while. The reason why we're back before the Conservation Commission tonight is because of the order of conditions that we had issued in 2022 that required an annual update. So we came before you guys last year, we went over all the stuff, and we're coming back before you to kind of give you an update of what we've done in the past year and what we plan to do the next year. And the big thing was the herbicide treatment this last year. But all right, let's go to the next one. So the thing that we were focusing on, and I bring this up all the time, was the weed treatment. So for the last 10 years, the Citizen Advisory Group has been doing surveys of the lake and coming up with recommendations of how to treat the weeds. And these are the ones, they're both native and invasive, that we've been dealing with in Lake Maspinock that are nuisance. The only one that I want to point out in particular is we've been seeing these weeds consistently, mostly in the North Basin for several years now. The one in the bottom right, the curly leaf pondweed, was something that was new that was observed this year and was included in the treatment plan. So I think that this shows that the survey work has been like working and tracking it and knowing what's there and being familiar with what's in the lake and being able to identify things ahead of time and try to be a little bit more proactive. So I feel like this last year really showed the success of that, those annual surveys, and being able to kind of react to that. All right, next one. Awesome. So this is the summary of the toolbox. So the last order of conditions that was issued had this toolbox of different treatment methods that we could do. And this is just kind of an overview. So the herbicide treatment was the most, I don't know, the highest, the most impactful one, which is what we did in 2024. But we also continue with the regular drawdown with 2024. And what you'll hear is we do an extended drawdown every year, 3 years. So that would be up next for next year. But we didn't do benthic barriers, hand harvesting, or mechanical harvesting this past year. Okay, what do we got next? So specifically, like I said, with the permit, we said we'd come back with you with more specifics about what was done and what was used, so you have a record of that. We also provided the Conservation Commission with the post-survey results and the reports that we got back from Solitude, which was the company that did the herbicide treatment. But the herbicide treatment was done last June, and we spot treated 64.5 acres. You have the amount of herbicide that was used. So we have now this record of what we did, because I know that was some of the concerns leading into this. And, you know, we think it was successful, but this is where I was going to ask Joe to chime in. I mean, so in terms of like technically, it did what we wanted it to do, but I asked Joe from the advisory group to kind of give an update of anecdotally what he heard from the lake community and boat users.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie, and thank you to the commission for letting us come before you. You'll recall it was a lot of angst and agony to try to get the herbicide treatment approved. No one feels good about dumping stuff in the lake, but we felt like we really were left with no choice, and it was trying to be proactive. We went out, Solitude did their post-treatment survey as reflected on the slide, and then the committee, the Citizen Input Group, does its surveys in the spring and the fall. So we did our fall survey as well after Solitude did their survey. And that, and also just observing and getting all the input from folks around the lake. I'm happy to report that the effect of the herbicide treatment was nothing short of remarkable. And this is just one time, one treatment. It made such a difference throughout the lake. And boy, going out there in August when you really couldn't before use the North Basin in August at all with the boats and stuff, and swimming was difficult, and even off the docks was tricky. all that went away, disappeared. Truly remarkable. And people were commenting left and right throughout August and into September how it was like a different lake, and really pushing for more treatment, which we'll get to in a second. So I have to tell you, Solitude did a remarkable job. And it was not just out like in the middle parts of the lake and things, like in the deeper parts, but all around the shore. They got very close to with it really looks like one of those airboats that you might have gone on in Florida through the Everglades. So they really can go close to the shore. And if you look on the slide that Kerry has up there, that one spot just south of Sandy Beach is where, for the first time, we had that curly leaf pondweed, which our limnologist, the lake scientist, was very concerned about because that's particularly aggressive. And it's the first time we saw it in the lake. And they spot treated there as well. And there was no evidence of that reemerging when we went out there in the fall and when Solitude did their post-survey treatment. So now we are not back here, and Kerry, I don't mean to steal your thunder. If you want me to shut up, I will, but we're not back here advocating for another herbicide treatment this spring. We are trying to be very judicious in terms of what tools we use in the toolbox. The conditions for the drawdown this winter, and even though we weren't didn't have an extended drawdown, I think because they were doing dam repairs, it just seemed lower than the usual drawdown. But the winter conditions for the drawdown for weed killing were better than we've had in 5, 6, 7 years. It was cold, there wasn't snow cover. And we had weeks of nice frozen conditions on the exposed shoreline. So the citizen input group had a meeting a month or two ago, and the unanimous consensus was we're going to do our survey end of May. We're going to do our survey in the fall, and we're hoping that the combination of the one treatment of herbicide last spring and the good drawdown conditions this winter that we're just ending will have a lasting effect. So we'll come back to you and report. We'll know more this summer. We're really optimistic that there'll be some lasting effect. So thank you all with the support. Thank you.
And that was the next slide is just exactly what Joe summarized of not proposing an additional herbicide treatment at this time. We want to, do that another survey next year and see how the lake responds after a year, and get some more input back from the technical team. We're in the process of trying to find a new limnologist to help consult with us. The one that we've been using retired, David Mitchell, after several years. So, but we definitely see that value in continuing the surveys so that we can compare year to year. And then I'm also bringing up to the Conservation Commission at this point that we are going to request the extended drawdown, which we do triannually, for next year. So we'll get through this and it will be next winter.
Hey, and I should also just report that there was no evidence or indicia of any kind of impact on wildlife. People were saying they caught as many fish as they did. Before we did the treatment, the swans came back, the geese. Unfortunately, we have as many geese as we've ever had, but the swans are all back and everything. So they're really, and the birds and the eagles and everything. So, it all seems like a good ecological balance again, and the lake seems much better. There's still weeds in the lake, right? We didn't try to make it a desert. There's still weeds in the lake. There's still a ton of fish. There's still a ton of wildlife. We have a family of, we call them lake otters, swimming around in front of our house. We watch them every morning, so anyway, it's just the lake seems healthier, if anything. Thank you.
So the next thing I have to talk about is updates to the commission about the dam, but I was wanting to see, at least have a pause to see if any of the commissioners had any questions about either the treatment that we did in the previous year or what we're planning to do coming up before we move on to the next topic.
I just had a quick question. Thank you for the presentation and the feedback. I'm glad everything kind of aligned for this year and seems to have been successful. Judy, I didn't see in our folder for tonight the Solitude report. I don't know if that just didn't make it into the work session or if I'm looking in the wrong place, but I would be interested in just taking a peek at that. If you could in the file.
I can try to dig it up and send it to you.
Okay, that'd be great. And then the other thing I would just ask, because we have a few things on the agenda tonight, and we've had some in past meetings. But Joe, I just ask for your help in kind of continuing to hit these different toolbox items and educate people about, you know, their yards and trying to create these buffers around the lake so that we can really try and hit this from the other sides too. Because we're kind of, I'm not saying everyone around the lake, but there certainly are still people who just are not really respecting that barrier and that buffer zone in their yards. And I think, you know, any assistance that the Lake Maspinock Association can give with educating people and just, you know, kind of driving that home that the commission is, you know, looking to work with everyone, but we really do need everyone to do their part. So to continue this relationship and continue doing this, we need to understand that it's also the people that live along the lake and responsibly managing their yards and things like this.
Thank you, Melissa. It's a very good point. And the LMPA, and I think Sabine Parisi might be on, who heads the LMPA, but they've definitely ramped up their education efforts as part of this. We told you that would happen, and I know they have been communicating that more. And I know we have a LMPA meeting coming up very soon, and I meet with the board on occasion, and we'll make sure, you know, to keep stressing that and emphasizing that. So it's a team effort. Everybody has to work together on it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else on the commission have any thoughts before Carrie continues?
This is Ed, just to echo your thoughts about, you know, having gone out on several boat tours of weeds and noticing some extraordinarily green lawns on the shoreline. And so to bring that up is important. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go ahead, Carrie, if you want to continue, and then at the end, I'll open it up to the public.
All right, awesome, great. Well, thanks. So I also wanted to give the commission an update about the dam repairs. The repair work was done under different orders, and most of the impacts were on the Milford side and jurisdictional areas over there. But for your information, we did repair. It was on the lower, say, east side of the dam. Yeah, there it is. So we started in the winter time, trying to get it when we had that drawdown. So we had least impact. The work you see the bottom picture is, you know, the after. So all of the concrete work has been done and the backfill of the dam and the levee system. So the only thing that's left to do now is a final paving along the top, which is kind of, which we're waiting for the weather to get a little warmer for that. And we did have like a drawdown, normal drawdown to do the repairs. It happened that we were in a drought situation. We're still in drought, so the water was very low. So all of the repair work was done on the dam structure itself, and the lake was, you know, quote unquote, able to refill as of March 1st. You won't see it starting to fill back up until like ice out conditions, which were a couple weeks later. So at this point, it's slowly going to refill per our normal kind of drawdown and refill. And that's not really the right term, but you all understand what I'm saying. Schedule. And in the springtime, we will go back and restore the disturbed areas downstream of the dam. Again, that is in the town of Milford, but there was a lot of jurisdictional areas out there, invasive species, so we're restoring all that. And the other thing, the picture on the top is, I like to point out because people are interested. So we built an access road for construction to get to the dam to do the repairs. But we were asked to kind of leave that there. You can kind of see in the photo, it's a dirt road. It's not improved. It was mostly like wood chips. It did have a crossing, which we're working with the Milford Conservation about how to leave that. But many people enjoyed having the access back there. Some people are concerned about emergency management and safety and ability to get to the dam, both for safety purposes and for operations maintenance purposes. So the road will stay and there will be a vehicle gate. So the idea is not that people can go, but if you're walking, we have that, and then there's the access for the future. And that is all I have.
Great. Thank you. I don't have any questions or comments on the dams. Anyone else on the commission have anything on that portion? No. Okay. Well, then with that, I'll just open it up to the public if we have any comments, questions. And I don't see any. So hearing none, I'll just say thank you for coming in and presenting tonight, and we'll look forward to having you back to talk about next winter's drawdown.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for your time.
Melissa, Carrie?
Yes.
I happen to see on my screen, Miss Essler is trying to get our attention. But,
Okay.
so maybe Miss Essler, you can take yourself off mute if Melissa gives you the thumbs up.
Yeah, that's fine. I wasn't seeing anything.
She
But you're
happens to
welcome.
be in the corner of my screen, but
Okay.
it looks like there's
Oh,
still.
like
There we go.
visually.
Okay.
Visually, okay.
I believe I'm off mute finally.
Yep.
I do want to say that as people were talking about how people felt about the lake, and what I do have is not scientific, but my own observations as a retired person who looks out on the lake every day, is that the shorebirds took a very long time in coming back and were nearly completely gone except for a few ducks in the beginning after the treatment. The swans took a long time coming back. The geese took a while coming back. Finally, I saw a cormorant. And no, the shorebirds took a long time coming back. I also wanted to mention that at the Hopkinton High School Science Fair, there was one project done looking at the lake and under the microscope of the microscopic life in the lake before and after the treatment. There were not enough samples taken for scientific accuracy, but it clearly showed that the microscopic life in the lake went way down and partially recovered. So I wanted to mention both those things because I just don't want you to have an unbalanced view that everyone on the lake is happy about the chemical weed treatment, because there are quite a few of us who are not, as well as the Sustainable Green Board is not happy about it. So just to balance the view, that's what I have to say.
All right. Thank you very much for your thoughts.
Carrie, do we need name and address, or is it well enough known?
Name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry, Carol Essler, 16 Oakhurst. I'm sorry, I forgot to do that. I was so busy unmuting myself.
It's okay. Thank you.
Through the chair, this is Ed.
Yes, Ed.
I wonder if the Conservation Commission could get a copy of the report that was done for the science fair.
I will ask Thomas if he's willing to do that.
Yeah, and copy of that report has not been provided to the citizen input group, so I have no idea as to the veracity or information contained in the report, anything like that. So it's a little unsettling that that's being presented and none of us have seen it. But
Well, he wasn't a winner of the science fair and there weren't enough samples, but it did show some of what happened.
Right.
So I'll ask him if he could get it to the commission or the weed committee. Next time I see him. He's a busy high schooler.
All right, thank you. All right, I think we're all set there for now. Being that it's 7:25, I'm gonna jump up to continued hearings. So
I think we can.
we have Lee, 30
Lee?
West Main Street, 0 West Main Street, 0 Elm Street. This is a request to withdraw.
Trying to do leave meeting.
Do we have
Why?
someone on the call?
Yes, yep.
Yep.
So
How do we-
good evening. My name's Sam Melfronti, civil engineer with
Doing
Soul
what?
Engineering, offices in Norwood, Mass. We've been retained by the owner to progress the application, and we've been kind of advised by Judy and town staff that withdrawing the NOI and resubmitting would be a lot cleaner, and that's what we're moving forward with. I wanted to join the meeting just to introduce myself and as well let you know that we are targeting the April 9th submission deadline, which would put this project, I think, on the April 24th agenda, if I'm not mistaken.
April
yeah, just-
29th, I think would be.
The
one
29th, yeah.
Yeah.
Apologies. Yeah, so we would like to formally withdraw the NOI that was submitted. And we hope that in the revised submission, it will help clarify a lot of the questions that were raised. I did listen to the January meeting and heard all of the concerns and questions. So we're hoping the resubmission is a comprehensive submission that addresses all of that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight and thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay. So to the commission, can I get a motion to approve withdrawal of this notice of intent without prejudice, which means that we're basically kind of clearing the slate. They're going to come in with a new application, all new information that we will entertain at that point in time.
I'll make that motion.
And this, of course, is with signatures by Anna or Judy.
Second.
Second.
Oh,
All right, all in favor, Ed,
aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
That is an aye.
and myself, I am an I. All right, so that's all set.
Awesome. Thank you.
Next up, Judy or Anna, do you have anything else on that? Did I cover it all?
That's right. I'm not sure that we need to sign anything, but in case we do.
Okay, in case you do,
Mhm.
cover our bases. All right, so moving on to Wall Street Development, 12 North Mill Street, notice of intent continuation for a single family house. Judy, do you want to give a background or do we want to have, I think I saw Mr. Petrozzi come in.
Yeah, I'm happy to give an update on where we're at.
Okay, go ahead, Judy.
So at this time, we haven't received Lucas's estimated consultant fee. So Joe hasn't been out to the site and we don't have a peer review consultant review letter. We have a few initial comments on what's been submitted, and the plan has changed a little bit since the initial submittal. So I'm happy to kind of provide those unless we kind of want to hear from the applicant or wait until we have a Lucas review. So let me know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll wait for Joe's review to really dig into this one. Mr. Petrozzi, I'll give you a chance to speak up if you're on the line.
I am. I'm
Okay,
here. So let me go back a little bit because there was an error on our engineer's part because we originally thought that the front setback regulations on this lot were only 40 feet, and Anna was nice enough to point out that we had the wrong setback information, because our original proposal was to try and construct this house on the front portion of the lot where we had recently perked the property, and unfortunately we had the incorrect information, so we had to revise the plan. And this is the revised plan, which requires us to now construct the home on the rear portion of the lot and crossing the wetlands with a driveway. And the upland portion of the lot in the back of the property would accommodate the septic system and the proposed house. So that being said, I've recently came across some information that this property may be eligible for some sort of a variance, which we plan on filing with the zoning board to seek relief from the front setback requirement so that we may be able to construct this house at the front portion of the lot. I'm not quite sure how the commission would whether or not the commission would support such a application. But the reason why we haven't submitted any review funds yet is because the plan may change again depending on what the outcome of that application and the variance would be. So I was going to suggest that we continue this hearing for about 60 days. Let me file with the zoning board and see what kind of relief can be granted, and then I'll come back to the commission with the results of that and perhaps another revised plan, which would significantly reduce the impacts as far as the crossing would go and the driveway and that sort of thing. So that's our approach at this point. And I'm open to comments or suggestions from the commission members as to the best way to proceed. I know it's a difficult lot. It's a lot that's been in existence since 1986. It's one of those lots that I would consider to be predating your your regulations. So there's a lot of history here. This property was the subject to a prior filing back in 2000, 24 or 25 years ago. So there's a lot that's transpired since then, regulatory wise and legal wise. So I'm open to some suggestions from the commission on which direction you'd like to pursue.
Okay. Thanks for that rundown. I say I agree until you work that out with zoning and figure out if you can get a variance, if that's an option, then it would make sense to hold off on Lucas's review and just have him review one plan rather than spend time on multiple plans.
Right.
So that makes sense. Obviously it's a difficult lot for the commission, so I don't think any scenario is really a great scenario in our eyes. It looks like no matter what, you're within this is the yellow line, the 25-foot buffer, or is that
Yellow's 50.
Yellow's 50? Okay. Yeah, the commission has a pretty, we've held pretty fast with people on keeping buildings out of the 50. So that's going to be a hard one to overcome. Although I think a long driveway is also a difficult ask too for all that wetlands disturbance and crossing. So I guess that's my 2 cents. I don't see a great alternative on this site. But I'll open it up to the rest of the commission, see if anybody else wants to give some feedback.
Yeah, through the chair. So If the variance is granted and the house is in the front of the lot, it would be between the wetland and the 50. All the construction would basically be,
Yeah, regardless of what location, we are going to be in the 50, particularly in the front. That's really the alternative. We're obligated to pursue all the alternatives and minimize wherever we can the impacts, and to seek permits that are available to us to accomplish that. So that's the purpose of the variance application that will be filed to accommodate that. And really, quite frankly, it's the commission's discretion, I guess, to either allow the work or allow the activity or not, and then we go through the process, whatever that process ends up being.
okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Or Judy, do you have anything else to add, or you good?
Through the chair, I guess the only thing I would add is the wetland delineation as presented on the plans we've received doesn't match the approved ORAD that came across the commission last year. So I would just encourage future plans to reflect that. And I think that's all I would have at this point.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so with that, can I get a continuant or a motion to continue this out to the 29th? Is that what you're looking for, Mr. Petrosi?
Well, yeah, whatever the schedule allows for. What is that, May 29th?
So
Or
we
April-
have April 8th, April 29th.
Yeah, no,
And
it'd have to
then
be in May sometime, second meeting in May, probably.
Okay. Can you
I think he
throw
was
that-
looking for 2 months.
Yes, about 60 days.
May 13th?
No, the next one, 27, is that, are you meeting that? Is that Memorial Day or?
So the next one would be June 3rd.
June
Yeah,
3rd?
let's do that. Let's do that. We're not in a rush here. We just want to make sure we do it right and give the zoning board an opportunity to go through their process without any deadlines.
Okay. So can I get a motion to continue this out to June 3rd?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second, this is Ed.
All right, all in favor, Ed,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
That is an aye.
and I'm also an aye.
Great. Thank you.
Lou, before you leave, are you also requesting a continuation on the other application?
Yeah, put
Okay.
that on for the same continuance date. June, whatever.
I can make that motion.
Thanks, Janine. Can I get a second?
Second,
All right, all in favor, Ed,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
that is an aye.
and I'm also an aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Yep.
We'll have fun with this one.
Sounds good.
See you later.
All right. So back down to the work session items now. We were at Mass DCR, Hopkinton State Park exemption request for a guardrail replacement. Judy, do you want to give some background, or do we have someone on the call to present?
Through the chair, I believe we have someone on the call, but happy to give an overview if necessary.
Okay. There's anyone on the call for the DCR project?
There's 3 of us.
Oh, great. Got a party.
Yeah, you got the whole crew. So you have myself, Douglas Partridge, and Stephen Perry for Arcadis representing DCR. Catherine Lamprozini is also on the call, who is the section head of maintenance contracts.
Okay, welcome.
Yeah. And would you like me to run through an overview of what we're
Sure.
requesting?
Yeah, that'd be great.
This is great. So you guys already have the image for me. Essentially, this is part of a maintenance project throughout the state park. We have already worked with Ashland on this as well. And basically we're just replacing the guardrails in kind. We're pulling out the post, which is primarily the disturbance, and replacing all those guardrails to provide, safe access and safety throughout the park. They're all pretty old at this point, and we're determined that this was time that they get all replaced. In terms of regulated areas, it is the northern one on this, or the one on the top, the guardrail on right after contract station that occurs within a regulated buffer area. In which we are asking for we're asking for confirmation for a minor exemption for this project. Given just the replacement in kind. We have a bunch of, we're basically not clearing any vegetation or grubbing. Only ground disturbance will be the removal and replacement of those posts. And we will be including any sediment erosion control as necessary. In terms of the minor project exemption, we are outside of any wetland or vernal pool. We are within pre-existing maintained roadway buffers and more than 50 feet from any mapped wetland resource area.
Okay.
And I think that primarily, Judy, or did I feel like I captured everything as part of our letter? I know you've been out there recently. Oh, and you got to see lots of snow, so that's fun.
Yeah, Judy, do you want to go ahead and add anything?
Yeah, sure. Through the chair. So the first set of guardrails mentioned was the one that was kind of more clearly near jurisdictional areas. We thought it was kind of like close. We brought the tape measure out like right on the cusp of 50, potentially a little closer. So that's why we recommended they come and present to the commission. There was potentially what looked like drainage along the further ones, but not sure if those were technically jurisdictional. They might have just been for stormwater. But not 100% sure. So I think it's a pretty straightforward ask. The guardrails did look like they were declining, and a lot of them were pretty low, so I can see why they're trying to replace them. And I think the protections as proposed are appropriate.
Okay, great. How long does this take all said and done? You get in and out on each guardrail in a day?
Hi, I'm Catherine from
Thank you,
DCR.
Catherine.
It's gonna take probably a few weeks. It's a process. They'll remove them. They install the new posts in kind in the same holes. So they can do a few 100 feet in a day because they're in the same holes, so they're not like doing any new holes. So I would say a couple weeks because the park's pretty large and we'll be doing Ashland and Hopkinton, at the same time.
Gotcha. Okay,
Through the
yeah,
chair.
this seems pretty straightforward. Does anyone else on the commission have any questions?
Melissa?
Yep. Ted?
Just to be clear, the holes are not going to be empty for a few weeks. You can pull out a stake and replace it that same day or the next day, I assume.
Yeah, they'll do a section at a time and they'll replace, the following day.
Right.
Yep.
We're not going to have loose sediment for several weeks.
No,
Right.
definitely not. Nope.
Okay.
They'll usually do one run at a time, and then even sometimes they have available 2 crews. They might have one crew that starts a day earlier, replace, and then they'll just come right behind and fill as they go.
That's what I figured. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Through the chair, this is Ed.
Yes, Ed?
I've noticed the last couple of years on the road that exits out onto Wilson Street, that on both sides is old wattle that looks like it's been there for a long time with plastic wrap, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm wondering what it takes to make that go away.
I am unfamiliar with that, but I can make that go away when we go out there and do the work.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Anyone from the audience or the public have any questions, comments? All right, I don't see any. So that being said, I think we'll go ahead and we could probably take a vote on this and just if I can get a motion to approve the exemption request for this project.
This is Ed. I'll make that motion.
And I'll second.
All right, all in favor, Ed,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
and Ted.
That is an aye.
All right, I am an aye as well. So you're all set.
Thank
Good
you,
luck.
everyone. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Have a great night.
Yep, you too. All right, next up we have 37 Oakhurst Road violation discussion. All right, Judy, I think I'll have you go ahead and give us a summary of what's going on here.
Sure, through the chair.
Mhm.
So Anna and I had received a call on Friday, March 7th from somebody in the community concerned about unpermitted work occurring on Lake Maspinock at 37 Oakhurst Road. We checked, didn't have any filings or approved exemption requests, so there shouldn't have been anything going on. We went out, called the homeowner who wasn't there at the time and got his permission to access the property just to kind of check out what was happening. The person who called was concerned there was potentially filling. So, we just wanted to see what was happening. And we observed what looked to be a full retaining wall removal and reconstruction, improvements to a hardscaped patio. And this may have been done at an earlier date, but a pretty new looking permanent dock installed on the lake. We observed some concerning activities, including water being pumped from and back into the lake for concrete mixing, debris and potentially concrete washout in the lake bed, boulders removed from the lake bed. So kind of lucked out. Another picture later on. And no erosion controls in place with a lot of sort of exposed material. So at this time, we spoke with the homeowner and the construction company and issued a verbal cease and desist, asked for proper erosion controls to be installed, the debris to be removed from the lake bed, the water pumping to stop, and for conservation staff to approve that those changes were made before talking about continuing any additional work. Went back out on Monday, the 11th, again with the homeowner's permission. The water pumping had stopped, debris was cleared out, erosion controls were added, but not installed quite properly. So there was a little bit of back and forth getting it fixed. But unfortunately, at this time, we observed a significant amount of additional work was done after having issued the verbal cease and desist. So it looked like they had backfilled the wall that was constructed. There was a big gap between the wall and the yard on that Friday that was not there on Monday. And what looked to be tar had been applied to part of the retaining wall, which was very concerning, considering this would be in contact with the lake water. So at this time, issued a written cease and desist, requested the tarred blocks be removed as soon as possible. Only work to be done is what is needed to get the site temporarily stabilized while the homeowner starts the permitting process. So as of now, we've been told that the tarred blocks are removed, and the commission, to kind of discuss what they want to see going forward, might suggest you have us draft and issue an enforcement order to sort of document the violation, stipulate that no additional work should be done before an order of conditions is issued for, after the fact and ongoing work, barring what might be needed to temporarily stabilize the site. So I think the homeowner has a little bit more information on what things currently look like. Happy to answer questions.
Okay. Thank you, Judy. Do we have the homeowner on the line? If so, can you introduce yourself?
I think he's muted, but I see someone trying to talk.
Is that better, guys?
Yes, we can
Sorry
hear you.
about that. Okay. Yeah, David Holmes, 37 Oakhurst Road. I want to thank first off Joe and Carrie for all their work with the herbicides on the lake. It has made a big difference. Two, you know, I've been here in town for 29 years, and I really care about my lake. And as Mr. Baldiga and even Carol Essler can attest to, that I removed so much trash upon taking ownership of this property about 3 years ago, and continuing to fix things that he's done wrong over time. This was an emergency situation. The old wall caved in and caused debris to go into the lake and caused patio and other areas to cave in. So my apologies in the sense that I was not unaware that I needed to go before you guys. It was more just a quick repair. And then what it turned out to be was a complete mess. The landscapers I hired did not understand English. I was not my intention. The cease and desist I took very seriously, as Judy knows, and they continue to do work that they shouldn't have done. So I greatly apologize for that. It was clearly not my intentions. My intentions or sole purpose was to quickly repair that wall, and I only had 1 day left of work, and which was to shore it up with veneer so that it would finish that job. I reduced the footprint from the lake because there was a dock that ran along that was also rotted, and in the back corner, the previous owner dug it out and made room for his jet ski, excuse me. And so my intentions were to bring that back to a natural, the way it was originally, which is just natural rock. In the past, I must have removed at least 2 dumpsters from the lake, plus 10 dumpsters all around the lake front, because he buried it. He was a sick individual. As the building department, you pass probably conservation members, everyone knows how bad this individual was. So my intentions have always been pure and what's best for the lake. And again, my apologies, it's gotten to this point, but it was emergency repair. It was caving in, and we cleaned out even more debris that was left from the previous owner. And I've only, at this point, really have only enhanced to the betterment of the lake, the improvements that I've made. The tar was, again, a problem that the landscapers should never have done. And I since fired them because they created a absolute huge mess for myself and with you guys. So again, my apologies. It was never my intentions to continue or do anything else other than strictly abide by what you guys recommended, and hence why I've always allowed Judy to come on my property to help instruct, to stabilize the property, tell me what she thinks is necessary, and I've always wanted to just kind of continue to work with you in good faith going forward. So I guess that's kind of where we are now. The only remaining scope of the work is to finish the wall, which is only about 1 day's worth of work, and stabilize that back corner. So I was hoping, coming in this meeting, that I could, with your permission, allow that work to be done, and then allow you guys to come back on and inspect. Again, that's I guess that's where I stand at this point in time. But even the even that old dock never encroached, never made a larger dock or anything like that. That dock was in the water, it fell apart in the water. He had massive amount of trash around it. Again, you know, you guys have been at this property so many times, and I felt like I've always had the blessing of the town by doing all this work. And I know I've had the blessing from my neighbors, including, you know, Carol would see it, Joe, Mr. Boldiga. He saw how much trash I removed, oil tanks, car engines, stoves, I mean, the propane tanks, the list goes on. So again, I love this lake, and I've always done everything to the betterment of this lake. And, you know, I guess that's where we stand right now. I would like to see it through because the water level's rising quickly, and if we don't address these issues in a very quick manner, it can only make things worse for the lake.
All right, thank you for coming in and speaking with us, Mr. Holmes, and for the cleanup work that you've done on the site. I think, you know, as we kind of touched on at the beginning of the meeting, the commission, you know, is here to work with homeowners and, you know, really assist and create the best situations possible for these projects. And I think there's some things that we look for and do on this board through the permitting process that, you know, can help avoid the situations that happened here with contractors who are not familiar with working on the lake. You know, the point of the permitting process, even if it is an emergency situation or what's perceived as, you know, emergency situation, having some plans with some direction for the contractor to, you know, protect the lake and do things in a certain way, is really what we're looking to do here as a commission. So, I think this is kind of an example of when we don't get a chance to look at what's being proposed or what the plan is, things can go way off course. So thank you for letting Judy on your site, letting us, you know, interviewing and realizing that this needed to be addressed with this contractor. As far as moving forward, I think we should write a letter, Judy, my opinion. We should issue a letter just to have the documentation in place. I think that obviously that should talk about site stabilization. As far as the wall goes, I think the commission needs a set of plans to ultimately weigh in on the final product of you know what your yard's gonna look like we talked about earlier. We're really trying to promote, you know, these buffer strips to protect the lake from sediment and nutrients coming off of the properties, so that hopefully we don't have to rely on herbicides in the future. This is a perfect opportunity to put something like that in place. So I think that there's a lot of value to still going through the process of going through site plan, you know, going through a review with the commission and looking at what you're proposing here.
It was really never changed this the scope of what was pre-existing. So it's really just a repair. So I understand. So there's no new plans, there's no, you know, the only new walls is mostly to support the old wall from caving in going forward, because the previous owner never did it correctly. And it only made matters worse on a continued basis with the property, so, there was no plan other than, and I never would have encroached or anything without, plans submitted to you, because that would be like, new, right? It's not new. It's just strictly an emergency repair, getting the walls that fell down out of there. It gave me the opportunity to remove further debris from the water because it was underneath a rotted dock. The rotted dock runs along that side wall, and that was also in disrepair and rotting out. So if anything, I reduced the existing footprint significantly in the lake. And then that back corner, he had like a rotted ramp. And now that I took that out, I wanted to make that back to normal grade. So there wasn't anything really new at all. No new walls, no changing of anything other than what was already pre-existing. It's just repairing it so that it doesn't create future problems for the safety of my property and for the betterment of the lake.
Well, I think anytime a project is proposed in our jurisdiction, even if it is repairs, replacements, things like that, the process is to apply to the commission. It could be, if it's a small enough effort, it could be an RDA, which is just asking the commission if the work can be done without a full notice of intent. And that's kind of where that determination comes in as to how much work it actually is. So there's a couple avenues of, how you would go about repairing a property or just working in our jurisdiction. But the idea is even repair work can cause temporary impacts to the lake. Even if you're putting it back exactly how it was, we try and put measures in place during construction to protect the lake and our resource areas from impacts like this during construction. So I'll open it up and see if anyone on the commission has additional thoughts on this and how to proceed here.
Through the chair.
Yes, Ted.
I don't know for sure if I have additional thoughts, but I'll echo what you said and maybe present them differently. First of all, there is a new wall. It's replacing the old wall, but it's on the old footprint. So I understand that. But there is a new wall, and at least temporarily it was covered with tar. So that is something new that I understand the contractor did. You didn't ask for. There are new ruts going down to the lake, and with the rainfall today, yesterday, I don't know if any of that mud from the ruts got into the lake, but that's all part of the application process too, is how is this work going to be done in a way that protects the lake? And that's why we need to see and approve plans, because otherwise a simple repair ends up looking like what we're looking at here, which neither you nor we are happy with. We have had people come to us with emergency septic work. And we're really very good at approving it quickly as long as they have their ducks in a row when they come to us. Septic failure is a big time emergency, I think, for a homeowner, and we are good at working with them under those circumstances. I am hopeful that we will ask you to come back to us with plans about how to finish this job. I'd be interested in seeing some before photos, if you have some. And right now, the emergency you talk about, where you're asking us to accept that on faith, and maybe that's all we can do. But if you have some photos of the emergency, that would be helpful to me as well.
I'd be happy to provide those for you. I have photos of those. The only delay was the cease and desist that caused this mud, this lawn, and everything else would have been repaired and fixed within a day after the cease and desist. So that we were all scheduled to finish up the job. But I am worried, I am concerned about the runoff with the rain. And I have put all the necessary barriers that you guys have recommended to put in place and I would honestly, like, I think I would like to add a few more, in all honesty, to stop the dirt going, because the dirt tends to gravitate towards the right of that first picture you see. So I would like to put a few more, since I can't fix it now because, you know, you guys won't allow me to. It's gonna cause further erosion and further damage. And so I'm desperate, would like to wrap up the job, have you guys inspect it, correct this area immediately. But unfortunately, I can't without your permission. So I'm kind of in a rock and a hard place. I really do want to, it's my yard too, you know, it's like I really want to fix that as soon as possible, because it's only going to make matters worse for the lake. And so I'm kind of not sure how to proceed from this point going forward.
Through the chair.
Excuse my voice, pollen really got to me today, so.
Yeah. Go ahead, Judy.
Yeah, if the commission would like to issue an enforcement order, if the homeowner can provide, you know, a professionally prepared list of things that are needed to temporarily stabilize the site, you can consider including those as exceptions to an enforcement order, cease and desist. I just haven't received a list of those professionally recommended items and not finished the job necessarily, but what's needed to get it in a stable place until the permits are here is what I would recommend getting.
Okay.
Because only the last remaining items are just the veneer and repairing the yard. In that corner, shoring up that area with rock, so it doesn't cause further erosion in that back corner where the landscapers really messed up. I can, you know, I don't know what else. I mean, I can put it in writing to you that that's the scope of the remaining work. But
Yeah, I
really
think if
just a
you
day or
can,
day or two finishing up.
if you can submit, and Judy, feel free to interrupt me, but I'm thinking if you can submit, like Judy said, a write-up of what you feel is necessary to stabilize and you know, finish the work to get the yard stabilized. And then Judy can go ahead and write the letter framed around that you know, the enforcement letter. I do think it is important to have you come back in with a plan that shows, you know, this is what you want the final product to look like as far as your yard stabilization and any work to finish off the project. If you're doing any patio type things, any you know, what the ground cover is going to be, things like that. We talked about, you know, the buffers, like we like to improve when work's done along the lake. So those types of things I think we'd like to see presented to us after things are stabilized to kind of close the enforcement out. If that makes sense. Judy?
Mhm.
Yeah, I would just add, if that list could be prepared, I know you're between construction companies, just, you know, whoever you're working with, have them focus on what's needed to temporarily stabilize. And just to confirm, Melissa, is it your preference that the homeowner pursue sort of an after the fact NOI, or how would you like those plans presented?
I think so. It's hard to say without, you know, having not with, I think the pictures will help, the pre-conditioned pictures, whether it's a notice of intent or, like I said, an RDA type application. I think when we get a little more information from Mr. Holmes on what the pre-conditions were and what the post conditions are, ideally going to be, then maybe you can provide some guidance and we can provide some guidance too on whether we feel it fits the criteria for a notice of intent or an RDA. Does that make sense? It's just really hard, just not knowing the pre-existing and post.
Through the chair,
Yes, Joe.
just a comment on, if work is done, on the wall, that would be the bank. And if work is done in a resource area such as bank, you would need a notice of intent typically.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Joe.
Through the chair.
Yes, Anna.
And with Lake Massanuck being a great pond, there are Chapter 91 requirements for both the dock and the lake and the wall as well.
Okay. Mr. Holmes, are you aware of the Chapter 91 program
No, not at all.
that's separate from the Conservation Commission? It's a state permitting program, but we do advise for applications to be made whenever people are doing docks. And like Anna said, foundations and things like that for retaining walls. But Anna and Judy can point you to that program and what that entails.
So that is required for.
It's
repairing
required
the
for
wall?
anything in the water, any work that's done in water, for a great pond in Massachusetts, which Lake Maspinock is classified as a great pond.
Okay, there's no work going on in the water. Well, the water will be up to that wall soon. I would like to finish the repair as soon as possible. So is that a 91 issue?
The water line, Joe, it's the natural water line of the lake, not the drawdown level of the lake, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So regardless of whether it's, you're doing the work in the water, it's just where the water covers the lake bed or where the lake bed is.
Currently, or a month from now or 2 months?
A month from now.
Normal high water.
Yeah.
Okay, I just, further delay, it's just gonna cause more problems for you guys and for me. I understand, the necessary hoops that you need me to go through, but I'd rather try to correct it as soon as possible, and then you guys can walk me through, the 91 forms necessary.
Yep, the 91.
I guess, and something else, but I would like to try to, I would definitely want to, especially the runoff, potential runoff that can happen on the side yard. Because, I've, from construction of this property, that is a serious steep slope. And I would like to try to address that sooner than later for any, so to prevent any runoff going into the lake. And the rest of the work does not need any heavy equipment or anything else down there. It's just really shoring up that wall with the facade, and so if I'm allowed to, hopefully allowed to with you guys, I could try to get someone to repair that side yard as soon as possible. It's hard for me. I'm not there now. I'm actually down in Florida, which makes things a hell of a lot more difficult. And then that's why I was unable to police the landscapers like I should have. But I would definitely like to fix this area as soon as possible, because I know if we do get a heavy rains, it's just going to make things worse for you guys and myself.
Yep, no, I did agree with that. The Chapter 91, it looks like all the work that would be covered under the Chapter 91, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but the dock's already in place and the foundation looks like it's already been done on the wall. So I don't think putting in the paperwork for the Chapter 91 should hold up doing the stabilization work.
I would agree.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yes, Ted.
Two things. Mr. Holmes, we agree with you. We want everything stabilized before there's another heavy rain, before the water comes up too high. And that dirt rutted road is part of the stabilization plan. We would love to see all of that stabilized. But stabilized is different from a polished finish to the work. And I think that that's what we're hoping to slow down a little bit. I have a question just for clarification. The dock, is that a new dock completely? Because you were mentioning that the old dock was falling down. Is the dock part of the work that went on under this emergency work?
No, that dock is I want to say 4 years old now.
Okay. And is
Yeah.
the dock on the same footings that the
Nope.
older dock had in the lake?
Yes, but the footings have been are reinforced
Yeah.
because the old footings were concrete buckets with rotted 4x4s in them.
Right, okay.
So it's the exact footprint, you know, and again, this is through, I've had, you know, the building inspector, you know, out there numerous times. I always called them everything. They're always there all the time on this particular property. If you review your files from 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, the number of complaints, I think you guys had numerous violations from this individual. I know the neighbors have. Everything was done as I was told. As long as you don't enhance and you make it better, then it shouldn't be a problem. So, you know, I don't know. It was just the same dock, but reinforced footings. I mean, same footprint, excuse me, but reinforced footings.
Well, you might have gotten some bum advice.
Well, I was sorry, but yeah, they were there too. I went. I get. I don't know. They were there too. Everyone was there. Everything was. So it's not like I circumvented this system. You know?
One other, if I may, Melissa, one other question popped into my head. I think I heard in Judy's presentation at the beginning that there's debris in the lake bed, and maybe I can see it just beyond the orange bucket. Is that a pile of construction debris there, Judy?
Oh, sorry.
That's what it appeared to be, yes, but it was removed between the two site visits.
Okay, so I was going to ask about the first step, the stabilization. Can we make part of that making sure that what will eventually be underwater has been restored as best as it can be? Can that
I
be
think
part of the
Judy can answer
stabilization?
that too, but it's been cleaned up far better than it ever was, and we removed a lot more trash that was left from the previous owner out of there. So it's even
Right,
better
and-
than it ever was.
Which is great. I just want to make sure that the new debris that has been put there has been cleaned up, and Judy seems to
Oh,
think it
totally.
has.
Yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, the other kind of clear alteration with the lake bed was the removal and movement of the boulders.
That was my next question.
Sure where they ended up, but yeah, last I saw there were still kind of gaping holes.
Yeah, from the removal of the tar, yes. And I would like to shore that up with boulders as soon as possible. So that they don't get erosion in that corner.
Okay.
Because the previous owner dug that out for his jet ski, and that was completely rotted. And it was unsafe. So the removal of all that trash occurred, and then yeah, they messed it up afterwards. Not messed it up, they shored up the hole, wanted the rock there, so that it would go back to my next door neighbor's yard, which they have a natural rock wall. So it would have tied into their wall. So it would have been more of a continuous flow, and also back to its original state, really, prior to the previous owner and his reckless oh, geez, I can't tell you guys how much, I had 30 dumpsters in that property, 30. So of which half was in the house.
Yeah.
Half was out. He buried the house 2 foot above the sills. He would go into people's trash. He was very sick. He would take trash and literally put it in his yard and bury it. So, you know, even Carol Essler, that they saw it, you know, Mr. Baldiga, the water department, you know, everyone's there. Everyone's seeing it. Everyone's seeing everything I pulled out of there. I have numerous pictures of the piles and piles and piles of trash that I pulled out of the lake and out of the yard itself. So
Okay. Yeah, I think,
I've been working on trying to really do the right thing here. And this wall was one of the last things that crumbled. And I didn't want to do it. And, you know, at some point in time, you gotta like keep spending money, keep spending money, keep spending money. It's getting crazy amount of things that I've had to do to make this property right.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Okay, so next steps, you know what we're looking for as far as getting a list over to Judy of your next steps for stabilization, and then Judy will write up a letter for us.
Okay, I believe I do. So
Okay.
just to let you know, so I'll finish, you know, my intent to finish the veneer on that wall. Shore up that right corner with stone and repair the grass as soon as possible. That I'll write that out for you.
Through the chair, I think the preference would just be to make sure that's vetted by a professional. You know, whoever's finishing your job, I'd like to see them sign off on that.
Okay, so they understand what they're doing and everybody's on the same page.
Okay, yes, I have to find another landscaper, unfortunately.
Okay.
But I'll try to get on that ASAP, because I just had, as Judy knows, I've had a lot of issues with the past landscapers. So, and I appreciate you guys, your time and everything, and also and your input too. So, I just want to thank you guys for that.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming to talk to us.
So to the chair, Melissa?
Yes, Janine.
So looking at photo 093 759, I don't know how another way to describe it, but I think it's a picture to show that there's a straw wattle there. But it also looks to me that doesn't look like lake floor. That looks like a created beach. So I didn't know if it's you know, been there for a while and it's better to leave it there, or while the lake is drawn down, do we want that beach? Yeah, that beach pulled up. It looks like a beach, right? Not lake floor.
Yeah, it does.
So like, do we want that pulled back?
Has that always been there?
Yes, that has
What
always
was the
been there.
condition of
And
that?
never encroached or anything. That's the pre-existing. I don't know how long I don't know how long it's been there, in all honesty.
The prior owner brought sand in and created it. I know that.
My guess, yeah. And you know what he also did was he put white sand down too, which was like, I guess someone told me that's really bad for the lake too. But yeah, no, it was pre-existing.
Okay.
But I think part of Janine's question is that really where the straw wattle should be?
Or
Maybe
was
that's a
really that
question for
like,
Joe.
not like if it's exposed to it, is it do more damage to go in there and pull the sand back, or to just leave it because it's there because it's been there, but it's not
And
really.
that water, in all honesty, should be brought up further what you see in the bottom left-hand corner. Should be brought up to that level and run from those stones over.
Yeah.
A little bit to catch any potential runoff from that hill. I kind of mentioned that to her before, where I really think there should be a horseshoe wattle at the bottom of that hill until it's stabilized.
Mhm. Um, yeah, I think this is one that definitely falls under that. What's the final condition of the lot and what do we want to talk, like, to talk about with a set of plans? But I hear what you're saying, Janine. If the water comes up, then you don't have access to that sand anymore, if it's something that we want to be addressed. But Joe, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, what's the ideal scenario for a restoration, or if the sand's an acceptable? I mean, obviously, we're not going to put any more sand there.
Yeah, I think, you have to take a look and see what the depth of the sand is, if it's something that could easily be pulled back and what's, substrate underneath it, if it's all rock. But I would be probably inclined to leave it if it's been there for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that Mr. Holmes, in the final condition version of the plan or presentation, when we talk about that, when we get to that point, that this will probably be a topic of discussion of what this area looks like or what you're thinking as a long-term condition here. Because like you just said, I mean, it's not a natural beaches aren't naturally occurring on Lake Maspinock. So
Yeah, no, I totally understand.
yeah.
What was there, what someone did, I don't even know, say 20 years ago. I don't even know if it was a previous owner to him. But yeah, I mean, there's been those, as we know, the whole Rock Island thing on North Pond, and how that was created. Yeah, so I have no idea when that was there. And you're right, I'm sure it was not natural.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm saying like that, even that corner I want to bring back to being natural. It's not like, oh, that'd be a great place for a jet ski, like I'm trying to do the right thing here by, even I don't use phosphates on my grass down that section and going up that slope. So, I really, believe me, I've been in this town for 29 years and I really care deeply about this town. I raised my kids here. And everything I did to this property was significantly enhanced it to the betterment of the environment. I can't stress that enough. And I want to continue doing that. So, I will put together a plan for you guys and, let you know what needs to be finished, but I would like to try to get that slope addressed sooner than later, just so we don't have any potential runoff.
Okay. It sounds good to me. Thank you.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you again. Nice meeting you all, and thank you for your time tonight.
Yes, you too.
All right. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, next up we have 22 Granite Street, informal discussion. Judy, you want to give an overview on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Through the chair. So I can give a quick overview, and we have the homeowners on if they have any more details to add. But we had heard from the homeowner requesting an exemption request to repave their existing driveway. So that's something that Ann and I can administratively approve, as it's not proposing an enlargement, just proposing repaving what's already there. But the homeowner had some additional kind of questions and ideas on ways to make improvements that were sort of outside the scope of an administrative approval. So she just wanted to come before you and throw some ideas out on, potentially expanding some of the paved areas, and may or may not be looking into improving an existing shed. So just looking at what the permitting process for, those types of improvements might be, and what the commission's sort of initial thought would be on expanding the driveway or looking at different ways to make it easier for her to park her cars. So I can pull up some pictures too, but yeah, happy to turn it over to the Millers if they have anything to add.
I think you, oh, go ahead. She told me I was going to speak and then she jumped in. Kidding. So it's Chris and Alexis Miller, 22 Grant Street. Judy, I think you summarized it really well. We've owned the property since 2008. When we bought it, it was in a pretty big state of disrepair, would be the nice way to say it. The driveway's original, 1987, and it's not in great shape. So two things we were looking at was one, we'd love to expand it where you can see the cars are parked. It is within the 50-foot barrier for the current wetland markings. The other option we were looking at is we have an existing shed. It's 14 by 24 that the original homeowners put in. We don't know when, but that's also part of that is also within the 50-foot barrier. We could park one of the vehicles in there, but the concern is it's not in great shape. That's a 40-year-old shed and it would need significant repairs. So the second option we were looking at was within the existing footprint, putting a new shed in place that could be in better, would be new, obviously, which would be honestly about the same price, if not less, than doing repairs. So those were kind of the two things we were throwing around. And we just would love to get some feedback before we go too far into plans or having contractors to get involved. We did have quotes for the driveway, though, that and plans for a driveway expansion.
Either way, we really need to
Either way, we're in
repair the
50-foot
driveway.
barrier.
The driveway keeps flooding the
Correct.
garage and freezing the door shut, so I get trapped at home, which is not ideal. So repaving the driveway is something we kind of
We'll
need
get to
to
either
do
way, yeah.
so that it just is doesn't have all the lumps and bumps and it's graded so that the water's not flooding our garage. But if we're going to have them out to do that, we were looking at trying to make it better for the cars. We have our daughter's 2 cars that park next to the shed. But then when I talked to Judy about it, maybe paving that area isn't the right thing to do. But if we were to put a car in the shed, the way it is now, we'd have to do so much work to it. It doesn't make sense to do anything to it. We'd have to just put something new up. So what Chris said, before we get too far, we wanted to know what your thoughts are on all of that. What makes the most sense?
Eventually, we're going to need to replace the shed anyway, I guess I would say.
Oh,
too.
yeah, that's probably at some point. If there's a chance it'll fall down someday and we'll need to deal with that. Like
Although
right now it's shored up.
Although the original owner told us it wasn't going to last a year, and we've gotten, knock on wood, we've gotten 18 years out of it.
Wow.
So
Impressive.
that's the dog you see in the paper. In the,
Oh,
in
okay.
the picture.
Just give it a
wanna
minute.
be
My
part
dog
of
will
this.
start barking
Okay.
back. Judy, do you have a plan view?
I was looking for it, but I
Oh.
can't
Can you
find
see?
it.
All right, ready?
Oh, gosh.
I don't know if this, I'm going to try and,
I'm going to try to put it, take it digital. What do you?
yeah, no. All right, ready?
The
Oh,
wetlands, they like follow the driveway, so it's almost pretty close to the tree line is where they are. So it's
This
right
is-
there.
Yeah. This is the shed. This is the driveway.
It's
And
a
then you
re-
can see the wetlands.
It's a reverse look. The
Yeah.
from what you're looking at, because the picture is reversed.
So I think so generally speaking, the commission doesn't like to see paving in the 50.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one. I think as far as the shed goes, usually with existing structures and disturbance, if you're replacing it in kind, replacing, the footprint as is, then that's usually
Yes.
something that we
Oh, there you go.
find acceptable. Yeah, okay, there we go.
Yeah, so most of the driveway was the
In the
top
50,
section is in
yeah.
the 50. Yeah.
Unless, I'd say the only other way we do it is like mitigation, where you're removing pavement or impervious area somewhere else, and you're kind of swapping.
Yeah.
It would be hard to do that only because we have to be like the driveway's narrow from the street to the house, and then we need a way to get into the garage. So that's
Mhm.
why that part's paved. The paving is slightly less important if replacing the shed in kind is an option without
being too much of a problem. We weren't sure about how that would work. That might be an option for us. Because my kids, one of them's moving to North Carolina this summer, so that's one less car. So now we only have one car to deal with. That's going to be an issue. Because right now they're just parking in the 50-foot buffer anyway.
Right.
Well,
So
but
trying to
anywhere at the driveway at the top is within
yeah,
the 50
basically,
foot.
but the non-paved part.
Yeah,
So trying to get them off of that, so that if there's any issues with the cars, they're not in that section. But so just to be clear, not paving that section, just repaving the driveway as is going to be okay. And then if we were to replace the shed with the same footprint, that shouldn't be an issue, even though part of the shed's within the 50-foot buffer.
I think I'm gonna open it up to the other commission members and see
Perfect.
what others think as well.
Okay.
Sure.
Does anyone have any thoughts?
Yeah, that would be my consensus as well, if the shed's on the same footprint, and not getting any bigger or closer to the wetland.
Nope.
It shouldn't, to me, it's not a problem.
Through the chair, that feels right to me, but just to be clear, we are talking about through an RDA process, not just call the pavers tomorrow and get to work. Right.
No. Well, we have
No,
quotes.
we listened to the last situation, so no, we definitely
Okay.
So
But
That's
just
why we're here,
repaving the
to try
current
and-
driveway and replacing the shed, to me, sounds RDA like, yeah.
Okay.
what does RDA sorry, this stand for?
Request for determination of applicability.
Got it.
It's a much shorter, quicker process than the notice of intent, and it's just
Okay.
the commission acknowledging, this is what you're gonna do, and we're okay with it.
Okay.
And
We don't think you need to do a notice of intent.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, we'd still need to go through the building permit process because the building obviously is
Yeah,
bigger
that-
than the town. Yeah, the whole 9 yards.
That's separate.
That's separate. Okay.
Concom likes to use confusing terminology, so it gives us a superior attitude of knowledgeability.
Thank you for clearing that up.
I love that.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so I think that's, if you're good with that,
Perfect.
we're good with that.
Thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Next up, we have Peoples 144 Spring Street request for invalid COC. Judy, do you want to explain this one? I think it's a housekeeping item, but
Yep, through the chair, should be pretty easy. So, Anna and I got called out to look at some hazardous trees at this property and just saw they had an open order from 2008 for a septic replacement that was never done. They did actually come to the commission in 2021 for an RDA to replace the septic. So eventually it was replaced, but the original order and the work that approved is invalid because it expired prior to the work being approved and commencing. So not sure what happened with this one. They had requested a COC be issued based on the order being invalid, and it just never got brought to the commission. So we're bringing it now and looking for a vote to issue a COC based on an invalid order as the work never commenced as proposed.
that makes sense to me. Does anyone have any questions?
So did they later do a new COC and then that one also got approved?
So they came back with an RDA,
Oh,
and
okay.
somehow it must have been caught then because that's when they requested the order get closed out, but it just never happened. They never bugged us about it again. So yeah, they never had to get a new order. It's just the original order was never closed.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Oh, that handwritten writing on there, that plan. Impressive. So can I get a motion to issue COC for this project based on the invalid order
With signatures,
with signatures? Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, Ed?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Ted?
Ted is an aye.
And I am also an aye. Next up, 22 Kruger Road, informal discussion on project changes. Judy, you want to
Yeah, through the
explain this one?
I can give an overview, and I believe we have the contractor on the call to go into more detail.
Okay.
Let me see. So this is a list of the changes being proposed. So there's an open order for construction of a single family house at 22 Kruger Road. And we had been contacted to discuss a few kind of small project changes to see if they would be applicable as just minor project change. There's just several of them, so I thought it was better presented to the commission. The applicant is looking to change the existing order to remove an earthen berm that exists on the front of the property line. It's within the right of way, but they do have DPW approval to remove it. There are 7 trees that are currently growing out of the berm that would have to be removed, but they are proposing replacement plantings and have some details on that. But I believe just have to get DPW approval depending on where those go. They're looking to replace existing and declining retaining walls. Me and Anna went out there and they did look to be in disrepair. One of the retaining walls would be pulled further back into the location of an existing driveway that's planned to be pulled out to create more lawn and planting space. They're going to be installing geothermal wells and potentially adding a walkway and patio. So on their own, several small things, but adding together, it's quite a few changes to the original plan. So happy to pull up the sketch plan as provided and turn it over to Zach if he has anything to add.
Yeah, hi, how are you? I'm Zach, calling for 22 Kruger Road. Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head. Everything was fine there. That was kind of my sketch on the original order conditions. We had approval to replace all the existing retaining walls. And in doing more due diligence and research and stuff, before we wanted to move one of the walls back about 6 feet. So that's what arose this. And then I realized that the walkways and patios were never on the original, or the walkway and patio was never on the original plan.
Okay. And are all these retaining walls in our jurisdiction or just a portion of them? I don't know where the 100 is, Judy, on the plan. Because
Through the chair.
yes.
I don't think the 100's on the plan because I believe the entire property is jurisdictional because you've got jurisdiction from buffer zone adjacent to the reservoir to the north of the property, and then you have an intermittent stream to the south of the property. So I think they there's floodplain, there's buffer zone. So I believe
It's all in. Okay.
if I remember correctly, the majority of the property, if not the entire thing, is within jurisdiction.
Okay. Yeah, in my opinion or my thoughts on it are I think it makes sense. I remember talking about these walls and walkways and things when we originally approved the project, and I think I remember at that time it being questionable whether they needed to be completely replaced or how that was going to work, and we were open to that. So I think that makes sense for the retaining walls. The berm in front of the house. So as far as replacing the trees, because whenever we have trees removed, we are always interested in having them replaced. And you're talking to DPW about that because they're in the road right of way. Is that what's going on there?
Yeah, so the berm being removed was an add-in because the berm is technically owned by the town. And it's encroaching on the road and it makes it very narrow down there. So in these discussions, and I believe we spoke with Carrie, it was to remove the berm. Yeah, and I attached a couple pictures here. We're still going to put the retaining wall back where it was in the existing location. It was just opening that up for the road and clearing the trees would make a nicer front for the property.
Okay. And then
And
You're
we're open
proposing-
to suggestions on plantings and what you guys recommend to go back there as far as natives and stuff like that. And then as if Carrie, where they want those, if they're gonna be on the homeowner's property, or if she even wants them with the road, that, you know, how it works with that.
Okay. Okay. So looking for some leniency to work with the DPW on the tree locations. Okay. Does anyone on the commission have thoughts, questions on this?
Well, as a resident tree hugger, I think the front yard looks nice with those trees.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Zach, how many of those trees have to come out for, that was on the original plan for the driveway cut? So I don't think we can see like where the utility pole, was there 1 or 2 trees that's right next to that utility pole that were gonna have to come out anyway for that driveway cut?
Yes, the first, I put 7 in the plan, but there was actually 2 that were supposed to be taken out originally, that I wrote on that last plan you had up. But yeah, those first 2 trees were proposed to come out in order to make room for the driveway. So it would be taking out 5 smaller oaks. 1 5-inch, 2 6-inch, and I believe 2 8-inch.
So I have a question. So just to clarify, is it DPW that wants the trees removed because the road is narrow? Or the homeowner wants the trees removed and DPW just wanted the dirt or the berm removed?
Yeah, so in order to remove the berm, we would have to move the trees. The homeowner would like to see the berm gone, and DPW just kind of back that they would like to see it gone.
Okay, so it was a homeowner request, not a DPW request. DPW just said, okay, you can do it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
And through the chair, the pictures don't do it justice. Like, this is not a low berm. This is probably like, what, 6 to 8 foot tall, Zach?
Probably 6 feet, 5.5, 6 feet.
So you're bringing it down to the road grade. It's coming
So
down. You're taking all that material out.
Yeah, the berm's higher than the road. You know, like the road, the level, like where grade is from the road, it's higher, you know, now.
Yeah.
Water's not gonna travel up, you know, that hill. So we figured if we take the berm out, put a nice retaining wall in, it widens the road. That was kind of our thoughts on things.
So the retaining wall is going to be,
If you look at this picture shown, the retaining wall would roughly be, it's like on the left side, it's right next to where that excavator's parked, and it would run down where that, exactly, roughly right about there.
so that's an existing retaining wall and you're rebuilding it?
There was an existing retaining wall on the homeowner's side of the berm.
Okay.
Yes,
So that'll just be a couple feet, but then it'll be flat to the road
exactly.
when you take the berm out.
Yeah, the retaining wall proposed is like 2.5 feet, just like a sitting wall.
Gotcha. Okay. You know, I am not opposed to it. I think my thing would just be making sure that the trees get replaced as we typically require.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So that would be important.
Yeah.
Important to me.
No, and the homeowner loves the trees. We love the trees. It's just the berm's kind of like an eyesore. It's just been piled up and deteriorating, you know? It looks better now. There was a ton of invasive and everything that was already, you know, trimmed back just so we could work and everything.
Are you taking all that material off site?
No, we're gonna reuse it on site.
Okay.
So once I build the new walls, I'll use all that retaining wall to, sorry, I'll use all that dirt to kind of backfill and spread around.
Okay.
Through the
So
chair.
yes. Is that
I'm
Ted?
wondering if Ed just heard that and has thoughts on the invasives that were removed and then just reusing that dirt.
If they don't leave the site, that's the big deal. When invasive ladin fill leaves the site, it takes the
Okay.
invasive.
All right, then. If Ed's happy with that, then who am I to say anything?
So the request here, Judy, is we need to decide if this is a just like a minor modification, or what would be the terminology here that we're looking to
Through the chair, yeah. Sorry, Judy.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, so a minor project change, or whether you feel this is significant enough to require an amended notice of intent.
Okay.
And I would just also caveat that DPW needs to, formally weigh in on the removal of the berm and any plantings or lack of plantings. Carrie, I have heard from Carrie that she's not opposed to the removal of the berm, but we hadn't discussed replanting of any of the vegetation.
Okay. Can we get I don't know if it would be pending or to come back with that plan with DPW and the plantings, exactly what you're going to do there. I think that's something that we would typically look for.
Yeah, definitely. We can, like, just for the berm specific portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Meet with Carrie and come up with a plan, and we won't do anything to the berm until we figure all that out.
Okay. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that? What you want to see, or whether this is a minor modification or not? Yeah, and do we need to vote on that, a minor modification?
Through the chair, yes.
Yes. Okay.
So whether you want to vote tonight or whether you want more information and then would vote at the next meeting.
I think if it's all right with you, Zach, if you could come back with, what you decide on with DPW, and then we can vote on it.
Yeah, that's
In
fine.
case we have any thoughts to add,
That's fine. And as far as like the other work that was already like replacing the retaining walls and all that, we can keep working on all that. I just didn't want to like have, and we won't do anything with the berm at this point until we figure out on that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I think that I'm good with that if everyone else is.
Through the chair, just to confirm, if you'd wanted to separate out the berm and the replacement plantings from the work on the retaining walls and the geothermal, or if we want to just get all the info at once and kind of look at it then.
I think, so you're working on the walls and stuff now? Or you want to
Yeah, I
work
was
on it
just
now?
kind of like, yeah, because we have the house built, we were fighting with the weather, and now I kind of want to like, it would be awesome if you could just separate the berm from that, and I can continue with what I didn't like. They didn't stop me or anything. We just were like, let's just wait and talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense to separate it then, so they
Okay.
can continue to work with permission. So can I get a motion to approve a minor project modification for the retaining walls and geothermal wells?
I'm happy to make that motion.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, Ed,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
That is an aye.
and I am also an aye. So you're all set with that, and we'll just look forward to seeing you again with the berm and planting proposal.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. All right. Elmwood Farms, Newberry Glen status update. Judy, do you want to give us a little summary of what you've observed? And then I see Mr. Merchant on the line and Mr. Kirby.
Sure, through the chair. So after our last meeting, when several improvements were proposed to the commission, Anna and I have been out a couple times after the most recent rainstorms just to see if everything was holding. I believe Rich has more information on the exact improvements that were made, so I'll kind of let him talk more to that. But we did see that the street's been looking pretty clean. They've reapplied the seed, the straw, and the tackifier to kind of the exposed areas on the site. It seems like the outlet control structure in the big offsite basin is, I don't know if it's leaking, but there's some kind of flowing sound coming from it that they're still trying to figure out. So water is still coming from the offsite basins and going downstream. The rainstorm on the 17th, there was a little bit of silty runoff coming out, but it wasn't making its way down past Ash Street and into kind of the jurisdictional areas downstream like we'd been seeing with the other violations. So it's definitely an improvement, and we didn't see any silt coming off after the rain we had yesterday. I think the issue is just that the basins are still filthy and we've got a lot more rain coming in the forecast. So I think I'm curious to hear what the plan is for cleaning the basins, and I think they have some additional kind of plans for how they're doing that. So nothing new in terms of violations, but I think the basins have still not been addressed. So I think it's to the commission to decide how they want to proceed with the building permits that are still being held up.
Okay. All right.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna, I have a little slide presentation prepared to kind of overview where we're at, if it pleases the commission.
Yeah, let's see it.
All right. So let me, there we go. Okay, so this is basically the an overview of what had been presented at the last hearing, and all of our commitments have been addressed. They've been highlighted here. Many of those items actually were done when we met with the commission beforehand. So we have a steel plate in the metal gasket on the outlet control structure. The additional silt fence and compost sock was installed by S&M Farms. Additional seed, straw, and tackifier was sprayed throughout the site. We put in additional flock logs in the downstream stormwater piping and drain manholes on Fitch and Myrtle. And we installed a stormwater treatment swale lined with jute netting, straw wattles, and flock logs on the embankment of the offsite basin, which I'll show you in a moment. Street sweeping has been increased to 3 times per week, plus timing before any anticipated storms. So, for example, we're expected to get about a ½ inch of rain over the course of Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Streets will be swept Friday. And we also talked with the project engineer Bowler to see how much water that offsite basin to the north of the project, which is the one that we've been dealing with, can hold. And they estimate it can hold about a 10-year storm event, which is about 5 inches of rain in 24 hours. Let's see. Oh, and the sand for the utility duct was removed from the cul-de-sac. So these are the photographs that we presented last time. The outlet control structure with the steel plate, definitely more robust than the OSB panel that was there before.
You might need to reshare. I'm not sure. We don't see pictures right now.
Oh. Okay. Let's try that again. I thought I was going through the whole thing here. All right, can you see me scroll now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. So anyway, here are the photographs that we had shared last time. The steel plate, this is the additional compost sock and siltation fence that was installed. These are the additional areas that were hydroseeded. some photographs of that hydroseeding effort, photographs of the additional flock logs, including the flock logs along the inlet swale, if you will, where water comes from the site into that first basin. We also installed a stormwater treatment swale where water will be pumped from the basin where it will flow down this treatment swale. There are a series of baffles with flock logs and a jute netting which will trap the sediment, and then the jute netting will be replaced as it gets clogged with sediment. And the idea is to run that on a 2-inch pump at a relatively low speed to clean the water that's standing water that's in the basin. The intersection of Myrtle and Fitch has all been cleaned up. Additional street sweeping. They were there when we were there talking with Toll Brothers about all these efforts. And then on Monday, we had about just shy of 3/4 of an inch, according to the Milford rain gauge from the NOAA website. And I basically just start downstream and work my way upstream to the site. So this is the drainage outfall that really becomes an intermittent stream north of Blueberry Lane behind that house that's right on the corner with very clear flowing water. This is the second offsite stormwater basin that's grass lined. There was really no turbidity that I observed in there whatsoever. This is the stream, the drainage ditch that flows from the first offsite basin, the one that we've been managing and dealing with. Water is very clear here. And I can zoom in if that helps. So you can see some of the grayish colored rocks in the stream bed, but the water is quite clear flowing through there. Similarly, water in the basin, while there is some turbidity in here, it's much clearer than it typically is. You can see the riprap around the edge here and some of the stones. This is the portion of the basin where water flows into the site from offsite upgrading areas. This is the stone sort of sediment berm or stone berm that creates sort of a sediment forebay in here. Again, the water coming into the site. Very clear compared to what we've seen in the past. And this is that water treatment swale that I showed photographs of earlier.
Was that water treatment swale being used during the storm, or is that?
No, we still need to get a pump, a 2-inch pump there. The pump that was ordered, or somehow there was a miscommunication, an electric pump was delivered, but we need a gas-powered pump. So I've been talking with the project contractor about that as late as this evening, and he said that he's still working on getting the pump.
And if I could just chime in on that, I think the intention is to circulate that water should we get to a point where we think another storm's coming, right? We talked about this at the last meeting. We got back-to-back storms. We don't think the water's clear enough to release. Then we start up that recirculation so that we can clarify some of the water within the basin and hopefully, over the course of 24 hours or so, get it clear enough where we can release it.
Okay. So you would need to be doing, so the point is you wouldn't do it during a storm, you're doing it prior to a storm, like this
Correct.
week, in preparation for the weekend.
Correct.
Gotcha.
If we weren't able to open up the valve in the basin, the water wasn't clear enough to allow that for that.
Okay.
Thanks, Ted. Moving on, this is the flow path of water coming from the site and upgrading areas. A series of flock logs were installed there. Again, the water very clear compared to what we've been seeing. This is a view of Fisk Avenue as you're driving up from Blueberry, that first sort of bend in the roadway. You can see there's no sediment or turbid water leaving the open portions of the site onto the pavement. Similarly, as you continue to drive up Fisk and you enter this sort of straightaway, there were two sets of catch basins that were giving us problems. This is the first set, and we've managed to keep the turbid water off the pavement and therefore keep it from getting into these catch basins. The water that is in the roadway shoulder is pretty clear. The second set of catch basins here, the wetland replication area is just off to the left for reference, and the intersection with Myrtle is right at the end of the street view there. This is a view of the first temporary sediment basin, just sort of looking off to the side from Fitch Avenue. We have the second temporary sediment basin containing water. This is a riprap overflow where if water reaches a certain elevation, it would start to trickle through some of this stone. This is the intersection of Myrtle and Fisk. You're on Fisk looking at Myrtle, which runs down this way. This is the sand pile that's used for backfill for the utility duct that will be continuing along Myrtle. We have some catch basin inlet protection along Myrtle. In addition to the silt sacks, we surrounded with gravel to help slow water down so sediment can drop out before it starts flowing through the inlet protection. We also installed a riprap swale along the length of Myrtle Avenue, really from that near that construction trailer that you saw in the up gradient photo, down to the temporary basin that's at the end of Myrtle. And along the way, we installed, it's got to be 6 or 7 of these gravel check dams. And we have the flock logs at the check dams. So as water's flowing down through the swale, it will flow over the flock logs and help release some of the sediment. You can see some of these flock logs are above the water level that we're flowing, and we're working with the contractor to remove some of the riprap and kind of embed these into the channel so they see and more water will flow over them. This is the stormwater basin at the bottom of Myrtle. There is some turbidity in there, but it is frankly clearer than we've seen in the past. And then lastly, this is the off-site stormwater basin to the south of the site, which has been pretty clear so far, and it's clear in this photograph as well. So I think we've made really good progress. I think we've figured this site out a little bit better than we have in the past, and we'll be out there Monday morning to take a look at things. I anticipate things are going to be fine, considering this was a roughly 3/4 inch rain event in about 10 or 12 hours. And the weekend rain event, the last forecast I saw, was about a 1/2 inch of rain total, maybe a little better over the course of Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So it should be pretty slow and steady over the weekend and into Monday.
Okay. Oh, thank you. It
So-
looks like a lot of good work. The basins there you had on site, the ones that were probably the least clear, the one at the end of Myrtle. Does that ever empty, or is that water just kind of?
It slowly infiltrates. It's a very slow process, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
I expect when the trees and understory start leafing out, that's going to absorb a lot of the groundwater or transpire a lot of the groundwater that's at the site now, and that will help lower that level more quickly than it currently does. But right now, everything's pretty saturated and likely will be through April and into early May until things really start to pop.
And I guess if I could just expand on what Rich has been going over, we are focused on this site and its erosion controls and stormwater. We will continue to be. We are out there every time before it rains, ensuring that everything is in place, leading up to a storm. We will continue to make improvements on a site, as most sites do, right? As you realize weak points, we'll continue to improve. And I think Rich pointed out a couple of those things, but just because we have done well over the past couple of rainstorms doesn't mean that we feel great about it and everything's good and we're going to stop looking at it. We're going to continue to make this a priority.
No, thanks. I'm glad you said that, Ted, because yeah, construction sites are always changing, and over time the phasing and whatnot creates different conditions. So yeah, you can't keep your eye off of it and have to adjust. So I appreciate that you have that in your radar. Okay. So I guess getting that pump on site's important for the backup plan, and it looks like based on this picture, there's still capacity in there for the time being.
Yeah, and in fact, I would say we're probably, I haven't looked at it today. I looked at it prior to the rain on Monday. But probably close to feeling comfortable about opening up that valve and letting some of the water out. But we'll take a look and make sure we're comfortable with it before opening that up. But we're keeping an eye on that too, with storms coming in to make sure the basin has capacity, but it's got a lot of capacity in there to hold back.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Anna.
So Judy and I took another ride out there this morning just because the rain got heavier overnight last night after we were on site late afternoon. The water is up higher than this picture, and it was quite a bit more turbid, but everything leaving the basin was still running clear. So, but it was back over the sediment forebay rocks and all around this structure. But that's just what we saw mid-morning today.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Does anyone have any thoughts they want to share on the commission?
Through the chair, this is Ed.
Yes, Ed.
I think it would be very nice to see a representative of the Toll Brothers stop by on site over the weekend when it is raining, rather than just showing up on Monday to see what happened.
So if I could respond to that,
Sure.
Ed, I've been out there a number of times on the weekends during the months of February and March when we have had rain on the weekends. I live in Worcester, so it's about 30-40 minutes for me. But I've been out there and have shared the photographs with Judy and Anna, showing where things were at. That was before that the last violation that we got on March 5th. So I guess it was more during the months of January and February, but definitely if we're keeping an eye on it. And Ted lives in Hopkinton too, so I think he has some ability to get over there too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rich, let that cat out of the bag. Thanks.
Yeah, rain events seem to happen a lot on the weekends lately. So okay. Well, I think I think I feel pretty comfortable with the effort put forward here and the expectation that continues to be monitored, and you get the systems in place to filter that water so we can get ahead of the storms. And keep ourselves in good shape here. So I know we're holding some permits, so you're probably looking for those, or I guess what's your status on buildings at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we would appreciate a release of the building permit hold. With the understanding that we're gonna continue to maintain the site and erosion controls as we have over the past couple of weeks, but that will continue as we move forward through the project.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think in my mind, if we're amenable to that, I'm amenable to that with understanding that the same level of effort, goes forward, or we'll find ourselves back in the same position again. So any other commission members have thoughts on releasing those lots? Are we comfortable
the
at this
chair.
point? Yep.
I echo what you said. I'm happy with the work that's happening. It looks like there are big improvements. Well, I guess when's the next time we meet? Is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now? 2 weeks.
April 8th, so that's 2
2
weeks.
Yeah.
My own inclination is to hold a little longer, wait for that backup pump to be online and see that it's working. And while this weekend's rain isn't expected to be much, I'd like to see if the systems that are in place, including that pump, are actually doing the job beyond just one rain event.
Mm-hmm.
It-
I think
That's
in,
my-
on
that's my
other,
own thought.
yeah, I think what we've done in other projects in these situations too is we've given some authority to our agents to release lots. Is that correct, Anna and Judy? Are you comfortable with that? If we want to do that between meetings?
Yeah, through the chair. If you want to condition that they get the pump up and running and that occurs before the next meeting, I can go out and verify.
Okay.
That would make me feel more comfortable if Judy and Anna are fine with that.
Okay, we have that, ensure that backup system's in place.
Yep. And if everything's looking good, you all would approve letting the
Yes.
building permits. Okay.
I would prefer that
Okay.
rather than releasing tonight.
Okay.
But I'm speaking just for myself, not the rest
Yep.
of the commission.
No, I think that makes sense, Ted.
I'm good with
System's
that.
not
Good,
complete.
good idea, Ted.
Okay. I think
And thank you,
we'll-
Judy and Anna, for doing that.
Yeah, running out there.
You've been out there every day anyway.
Okay. I think that's it.
Great, I appreciate your guys' time, and yeah, Judy, we will be in touch.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep. All right, I think that was everything. Right? Yeah. Okay, and no public forum requests, nothing else popped up? No. Okay.
Through the chair,
Yes, Ed?
sort of a public request. I've had a number of inquiries. I don't know why they asked me why it was that these events took place at the Toll Brothers and we just kind of rolled over it. And the opinion of two people rolled over and played dead.
For this blueberry development that we
Yes,
were just talking about?
yes, yes.
I
We-
think
we-
hold building permits sends a strong message.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of my defense, but, they're saying, don't you have the ability to find people, et cetera. And so again, I held up that, we did a cease and desist and I thought that that was adequate. But I wanted you to know that I've gotten heat.
Well, thanks for sharing, Ed. But yeah, I think just based on the commission's experience, I think we found that holding cease and desist on these larger developments is a lot more effective than fining would be my response. to that comment. The fines are just something that don't seem to instigate action from the large developers because they do have plenty of money to pay fines, but they don't have time to wait for building permits. So
I agree absolutely, and these fines are petty change. But I wanted you to know. That's all.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So, all right, anything else on anybody's mind?
Yeah, through the chair, I had something. We got an exemption request today from Chuck Douchy with the Trails Club, to do some vegetation clearing to blaze some trails at the Colella property that the town recently acquired. And Anna and I are gonna meet him out there next Tuesday at 1, and he extended the invite to anyone who wants to join. We'll be meeting at the Hughes Farm Conservation Area parking lot at 1 o'clock next Tuesday. So feel free to join us.
Okay. That sounds good. If you don't mind sending just a reminder email, maybe.
Will
on
do.
Monday, that'd be great. Hopefully the weather's
Yeah.
nice.
We've got a rain date too, so if it changes, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Except more than a quorum can't go, right?
Good question.
Right.
Yeah, I think unless we're really careful about discussion topics. Yeah, I mean, we've done site walks and stuff with everybody. We just keep discussion to, not discussing anything. So we could, I guess if anybody's planning on going, maybe just reply to Judy's email when she sends it. We'll have an idea. All right, I think, and we did hear that the our next meeting is in person on April 8th, but we did get word that the remote meeting law was extended. So going forward, that will continue to be an option till, what is it, 2027?
Wow,
Judy?
that's a long time.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I keep watching Ed for a reaction to that.
I know, I was like,
news.
sorry, Ed.
The guy's stoic.
You know, this whole COVID thing and what it has done to the way we work and what it has done. So our daughter lives in Montana, and what it has done to the real estate values in Montana as people move from California to Montana, learning that they could do their work from anywhere, just like our daughter comes out to visit us and continues to do her work, that during her normal work day, where she lives in Helena and her office is like maybe a 20-minute walk tops, almost all of her work time is spent in her house. And yes, I find this uncomfortable. I think that we lose an awful lot by losing the personal, social, communal relationships by meeting like this. It's better than nothing, but we lose a
I
lot.
think there's truth to that, but if it also has profound impacts on national voting patterns and electoral college, maybe there's a silver lining to this.
Pros and cons. Yeah.
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right, can I get a second?
And I'll second.
All in favor, Ed,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
That is an aye.
and I am also an aye. All right.
See
Thank
you
you
in
all.
person.
Sounds good.
All right.
Yeah, see you in 2 weeks.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night.